Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It is 9 o'clock on Friday, and you are watching me, Deb Burton, the host of Friday Friends, where every Friday for 6 or so years, I have brought you guests that you or someone you know needs to know about. And for the month of November, we dedicate all of our Friday Friends to resources and information that touch on the lives of our beloved veterans. So we are having a really fun conversation today with Mel Bloom from the 350 Girls to get caught up on what they have been doing and all of their amazing work. So please help us get the word out. Hit the share button, the like the button, all of those bells and whistles that say, hey, check this out. This is a really fun conversation. Now, as you all know, we could not do this without the support of our sponsors. So a big thank you to Point 32 Health Foundation, United Healthcare, and especially McCarthy Law. Here's a message from McCarthy Law.
Here at McCarthy Law, we practice in the areas of estate planning, long-term care planning, elder care law, and residential real estate. Our focus is really on providing peace of mind to our clients.
If you're interested in scheduling a consultation with our office, you can feel free to reach out to us at 401-541-5540. You can also reach out via website at www.mccarthylawri.com. You also should check out our social media, both on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for some helpful tips and tricks.
Welcome, Mel. How are you today?
Good. I'm excited to be back. I think we did this a couple years ago and a lot's changed, I think, for us both since then. So
absolutely. So please, for folks who maybe didn't see you the first time, tell everybody who you are and what the 350 Girls is.
Yeah, so my name is Mel Bloom. I am an Air Force veteran, and I started an organization called 350 Girls about 3 years ago to start making sure that women's histories were told. And this was because when I was in training and when I was in the military, I was noticing that women's stories were not part of what we were being taught in heritage. And if you walk around campus, everything's... My cat just fell off the table.
We love the cats.
I was on a roll there.
No, you're doing fine.
Looking at DFACs and everything in the military is named and has, some story behind it. And I was figuring out that was really one-sided. So I started 350 as this public history project because I wanted to figure out why we weren't in museums and why our stories are not being told. And it came down to a lot of times, most people who were developing heritage and they just didn't know. So I wanted to make sure that that was no longer an excuse for why women's stories weren't being shared and being included in programming in military museums as well. So
absolutely. So what is the history of women in our military?
So women have actually been serving alongside the military. If we really want to get nitty gritty, we can date that all the way back to the Revolutionary War. We've got Deborah Sampson. We have women who served in uniform, but there was actually a system for women to be employed with the military in the Revolutionary War as nurses. They had a payroll, they had rank, they had not military rank, but there was an organizational system for nurses going back to the Rev War. And we do get more of your traditional, women served in the Army as starting in World War I, when you get women in the Marines and the Navy. But the system that we really know and understand for most as a military system would be World War II. And that's where we tend to focus. Most of our work is the Women's Army Corps, the women who served in the Marines, the Navy Waves, women who were flying for the military with the Air Force. So our understanding of military women we really do focus on World War II, but like I said, we've been serving alongside men in this country since day one.
Wow. I think that is not necessarily something that a lot of people realize, is that the women have been right there alongside the men, maybe at one time in different roles, but always there. This is not some new phenomenon, right?
The military has always been gender. There's always been a gender role, but it also requires people to understand that the military is more than just combat. There's so much involved in a successful fight and a successful military. And when people tell me, well, they did laundry, they did mail, they did nursing, it doesn't count. It's like, well, I'd like to see the military operate without cooks, nurses, and laundry. So it does, not only are we looking at a bigger picture for how women serve, but it also highlights all these different roles in the military that I think people forget are essential for a successful fight.
Yeah, and I recall over the summer, it might have been like late spring, there was a movie that came out discussing the African American women who handled the mail. Could you share with folks, because that was like a piece of hidden history that hit the TV screen?
Well, what was really crazy about the 6 AAA is that is the first like mass media moment about women in military history. And there's been a couple of like women's Army Corps in the background of like, Band of Brothers, and you have the Marines in the Pacific, but there's been no major movie or TV show about women in the military until that film came out. So that in of itself was kind of a big deal. But the movie was about what was called the 6 AAA. It was a all women's African American postal battalion. And when the movie talks about, there was 800 women in this postal battalion, there was actually about 6,000 women, African American women, serving in the Women's Army Corps during World War II. 800 of them were in that 6 AAA postal battalion that went overseas because they had not been allowed to go overseas, even though the Women's Army Corps was serving in England and Africa and in other, they were all the way in Australia. So for these women to have the opportunity to go serve overseas and take on that mission of sorting that mail, that was incredibly groundbreaking for the time when they were not even really taken seriously in the military. So for them to get that opportunity and then for a major movie to come out about it, that's just incredible all around.
And then you did something really awesome around that movie. You invited the members of the 6 AAA. I probably said that wrong.
No, that's 6 AAA.
Okay, 6 AAA. You invited the surviving members and their family members to be part of a conversation about the experience of themselves and their loved ones. And having had the privilege to be on that call, on that meeting with everyone, it was amazing to hear the firsthand stories. So you're really bringing history of the military and the women who serve to life and making it concrete, like in today's society. This is what this looks like. And I think what you're doing is really amazing. Now, do you find as your organization is growing that more people are outreaching to you for information, resources, presentations, things like that?
We're definitely getting a lot more requests for presentations, which I love. I love having a chance to have a conversation. One thing that we're getting a lot of questions about is, hey, I've got mom's uniform. What do I do with it? On the flip side, we've also had someone send us mom's uniform in a trash bag because they didn't know what to do with it and just wanted it out of the garage. But as people are starting to get older, one of the things that they're starting to talk about is military service. And especially as women's stories come, they're either declassified or it becomes more normal or comfortable for them to share those stories. We've got people reaching out and being like, hey, I think my mom was a wave, or hey, my grandmother's telling me her stories about being in the Women's Army Corps. And, can you tell us about her service? Or, those family members have passed on and they found something and they're like, hey, we want to know more. And she never spoke about it. So as we've built up over the last couple of years, I think one of my favorite parts is when we get to help family members learn more about their service member. And it's so much fun to have those conversations with people. It's really special.
Yeah, because it feels like, back in World War II and earlier, and even a lot of times now, it even feels like women who served are not necessarily chatting it up. They don't necessarily wear, like I am a veteran hat. Some do, but not everybody. And so families might not even realize that their mom, their grandmom, their auntie did serve. So what an amazing treasure that you're able to help the families like learn more about what their loved one did if they are not able to get that from their loved one. How cool is that?
It really kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's like people don't think that, oh, this was a military role. Because I've had people come up to me and be like, hey, I think my mom is a Marine, but all she did was like sort mail in Washington, D.C. And I'm like, nope, still a Marine, still a service member, still a veteran. It still counts. But when people think World War II, they're thinking like Band of Brothers and, the nurses at Pearl Harbor. And talking to people and being like, no, it doesn't matter whether or not they were, a nurse at Pearl Harbor or code breaking in DC. They raised their right hand, they served. So it's been a really fantastic conversation that I get to have with people.
Yeah. What is your website if people wanted to learn more?
So our website is 350girls.com, spelled out THREEFIVEOH, girls plural. And lessons learned starting a small business, which is what I thought this would be. We needed a better website at the time, but this is what we got, and it's what people know us as. So we're 350girls.com, and then on Facebook and social media as well. You can find us as 350girls.
Awesome. So I'm going to take a wild bet that if somebody out there was watching and was a history buff and was also skilled at web design, that you would entertain a conversation about a volunteer to update the URL and all those things.
Definitely looking for any kind of help with our website. And if anyone's like really good at nonprofit law, because that's our next step, that's our hope to grow in the future. And that way we can start making it easier for people to donate their uniforms and help us grow, because we do a lot of our presentations and programs for free. So we're dealing with all the nonprofit laws, and it's funny, I don't consider myself a historian sometimes. I'm definitely not a nonprofit lawyer like that.
No, leave the law to the lawyers. Absolutely. You got to write the check. So, but you're in process of getting that 501c3 status, and that's important. And there are a lot of steps to it, I can say, but leave that one to the experts. Absolutely. But, people can still support your work. There's nothing that prevents them from doing that. It's just they may not get the tax deduction. Not that I can offer tax advice either.
So we appreciate, we actually got a lot of really amazing support for we're going to Philadelphia next week for the Marine Corps 250th. And several of our team members are either active duty military or they're not federal employees and they're not getting paid right now. And thanks to some very generous people, we're able to bring our team down to Philly for the Marine Corps 250th. So we've got some really great people supporting us and allowing us to bring this programming to somewhere like Philly for free. I'm really grateful for that.
Awesome. And one last question. Where did you come up with the name 350 Girls?
So we represent the 350,000 women who served in World War II. Because when we started, I thought, hey, we're just going to keep it to World War II. We're not going to get too crazy with it. We do now, want to make sure that we're including like women who served after World War II, but we want to keep it to that original 350,000 women, because those are the ones who really paved the way. Those are the ones that pushed for what became known as the Integrated Service Act in 1948. So our name, whether we go into Vietnam era or World War I, we want to pay tribute to that original 350,000.
Awesome. Mel, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been amazing to see your organization grow and thrive in these times. And your work is so important. We need to understand all of history and understand the diversity of the individuals who have served. So I greatly appreciate what it is that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. I always love getting to talk about it. So
yeah, thank you. Everybody, this is truly, if you hear that the 350 Girls are out at an event, please make sure you stop by. Mel has some truly amazing artifacts and is always very helpful and happy to share information about the women who have served our nation. It is truly a great organization. If you have the opportunity to volunteer, to donate, any of those things to help support the work that she's doing, it would be greatly appreciated. She is one of our women warriors. She is an Air Force veteran, and she's an amazing woman doing amazing work. I am so glad that you are all able to check that out with us. Now, I am looking forward to seeing you all again next week. In the meantime, be well and be kind.